From the shadowy depths of history, a name emerges. Blackbeard. A figure etched into the very fabric of maritime lore, synonymous with terror, with savagery. But what do we truly know of this man, Edward Teach, who commanded the seas and struck fear into the hearts of sailors and empires alike? Was he the monster of legend, or something far more complex? A calculated force, whose legend was crafted as carefully as his raids. Our journey begins not with a blaze of cannons, but in the quiet, bustling city of Bristol, England. Here, in the late 17th century, a man named Edward Teach, or Thatch, was likely born. His early life remains shrouded in the mists of time, a common fate for those destined for a life beyond conventional society. Yet, even in these formative years, the seeds of a future terror were perhaps unknowingly sown, awaiting the catalyst that would transform a common sailor into a fearsome legend. The early 18th century brought with it the brutal reality of the War of Spanish Succession. This was no ordinary conflict, it was a crucible for men like Teach. He served as a sailor on privateer ships, vessels authorized by the crown to prey on enemy shipping. It was a legal form of piracy, a harsh education. Here, amid the chaos and violence, Teach honed his skills, gaining invaluable experience in naval warfare, navigation, and the art of battle. A dark apprenticeship for a darker future. When the war ended in 1713, the peace treaty brought an unwelcome reality for thousands of privateers. Their letters of marque, their authorization to plunder, became worthless. With no official work and a lifetime of learned violence, many found themselves at a crossroads. The choice was stark: return to meager wages or embrace a life of outright piracy. For men accustomed to seizing fortunes, the call of the black flag was irresistible. A new era of lawlessness dawned. It was around 1716 that Edward Teach made his fateful decision. He joined the crew of Captain Benjamin Hornigold, a notorious English pirate operating out of the Bahamas. Hornigold, a veteran himself, was already a feared name on the seas. Under his tutelage, Teach refined his skills, not just in seamanship, but in the very psychology of piracy. He observed, he learned, he rose. The transformation from privateer to full-fledged pirate was complete. Hornigold, recognizing Teach's exceptional abilities and brutal effectiveness, soon entrusted him with greater responsibility. He gave Teach command of a captured sloop, a swift and agile vessel perfect for raiding. This was a pivotal moment. Teach was no longer just a crewman, he was a captain, with his own ship, his own command. The path to becoming the infamous Blackbeard was now clear, illuminated by the promise of plunder and the taste of power. The hunt had begun. In late 1717, Benjamin Hornigold made a surprising decision. He accepted the king's pardon, effectively retiring from piracy. This left a void, but also an opportunity. Teach, now an experienced captain with his own vessel, was free. No longer under Hornigold's shadow, he became an independent captain, forging his own destiny on the lawless waves. The stage was set for the emergence of a new, even more terrifying, force. It was during this period of independence that Edward Teach began to craft his most potent weapon, his image. The legend of Blackbeard was born. His dark, imposing beard, reportedly braided with ribbons, became his signature. But it was his cunning theatricality that truly struck terror. Before battle, he would ignite slow-burning fuses under his hat, wreathed in smoke, giving him a demonic appearance. A psychological gambit designed to paralyze opponents before a single shot was fired. This wasn't mere vanity, it was calculated psychological warfare. Blackbeard understood the power of fear. If an enemy surrendered without a fight, it saved ammunition, lives, and time. His terrifying appearance was designed to break the will of his opponents, to make them believe resistance was futile. This strategy, more than any broadside, cemented his reputation and spread his infamy across the Atlantic. He conquered minds before he conquered ships. In November 1717, Blackbeard captured his ultimate prize, a large French merchant ship named La Concorde. This vessel, laden with treasure and slaves, was far more than just plunder. It was a blank canvas for his ambition. He brought it to the island of Bequia, transforming it. This capture marked the true beginning of his reign as the most feared pirate in the Caribbean. A testament to his growing power and strategic genius. Renamed the Queen Anne's Revenge, this formidable vessel became Blackbeard's flagship. He spared no expense in turning it into a floating fortress. The ship was heavily armed, fitted with a staggering array of cannons. 40 of them. A mobile battery, capable of overwhelming almost any merchant vessel, and even challenging smaller naval ships. The sight of her sails on the horizon would have sent shivers down the spine of any sailor. The Queen Anne's Revenge was not alone. It became the centerpiece of a small, but formidable, fleet. Under Blackbeard's command, his crew swelled. At its peak, he commanded between 150 and 300 men, a significant force in any context. These were hardened sailors, many of them former privateers, drawn to the promise of plunder and the leadership of a man who seemed invincible. His fleet dominated the shipping lanes, a clear and present danger. Life aboard a pirate ship like the Queen Anne's Revenge was far from romantic. It was harsh, disciplined, and often brutal. Yet, it offered a strange form of democracy not found in the Royal Navies or merchant fleets. Plunder was shared, rules were established, and even the captain's authority was not absolute. These men, bound by common purpose and desperate circumstances, formed a unique society, driven by the thrill of the chase and the promise of wealth. Despite his fearsome image, Blackbeard was not, by most accounts, a gratuitously bloodthirsty killer. His primary weapon was his reputation, his ability to inspire terror. The goal was surrender, not slaughter. While violence was always a possibility, it was often a means to an end. He was a strategic thinker, understanding that a live crew could repair ships and offload cargo, while a dead one offered little benefit. A chilling pragmatism guided his actions. However, let there be no mistake, Blackbeard's battles were brutal. When negotiation failed, or when a show of force was necessary, he and his crew fought with savage intensity. They used pistols, cutlasses, and the raw, intimidating power of their numbers. The air would be thick with smoke and the smell of gunpowder. The sight of his looming figure, wreathed in smoke, brandishing multiple weapons, was often enough to shatter any lingering resistance. An inferno of violence. For months, Blackbeard and his fleet terrorized the shipping lanes of the Caribbean and the Atlantic coast of North America. Ship after ship fell victim to his calculated aggression. Their cargo, their valuables, their very identity, stripped away. The fear he inspired ensured many surrendered at the mere sight of his black flag. His legend grew with every captured prize, his reputation preceding him, sowing panic long before his sails appeared. But nothing solidified Blackbeard's terrifying reputation more than his audacious blockade of Charleston, South Carolina. In May 1718, he sailed his fleet directly into the port's entrance, effectively sealing it off. This was not a quick raid, this was a deliberate, prolonged act of defiance against a major colonial hub. It was a declaration of power, a message sent directly to the authorities, challenging their very sovereignty. The stakes had never been higher. For days, Blackbeard's fleet held Charlestown hostage. During this time, he captured between 8 and 9 ships attempting to enter or leave the harbor. Among the captives were prominent citizens. But what did the infamous pirate want? Not gold, not jewels. His demand was specific and utterly unexpected, a chest full of medicine. His crew was ailing, and he saw a practical need over immediate riches. A surprising, calculated move from the supposed monster. After receiving his requested medicine chest, Blackbeard made good on his word. He released all the hostages and their captured ships, albeit after relieving them of their valuables. He then sailed away, disappearing as quickly as he had appeared. The blockade had been a resounding success, a masterclass in intimidation and strategic negotiation. He proved that his word, even a pirate's word, could be trusted, adding another layer to his complex reputation. The blockade of Charlestown was a massive humiliation for the colony of South Carolina and, by extension, for British authority in the Americas. A single pirate, albeit with a powerful fleet, had brought a major port to its knees. The incident sent shockwaves through the colonies and back to England, galvanizing officials to intensify their efforts against piracy. Blackbeard had made a powerful enemy, and his days of unchallenged dominance were numbered. He had pushed too far. Following the Charleston incident, Blackbeard made another surprising move. He sailed to Bath, North Carolina, and there, in June 1718, accepted a king's pardon from Governor Charles Eden. This was a common tactic for pirates at the time, a chance to wipe the slate clean. Was Blackbeard genuinely retiring from his life of crime? Or was this merely a temporary reprieve, a strategic pause before his next act? The truth remains clouded, much like his motives. Even after accepting the king's pardon, Blackbeard did not fully relinquish his power. He kept the Queen Anne's Revenge, albeit reportedly grounded or scuttled in Ocracoke Inlet. Why hold on to such a potent symbol of his pirate reign if he truly intended to retire? The presence of his formidable flagship, even in disrepair, hinted at a restless spirit. The legend, it seemed, was not ready to be laid to rest. Not yet. Whispers soon began to circulate about Blackbeard's retirement. Allegations emerged of corruption between the supposedly reformed pirate and Governor Charles Eden himself. It was suggested that Eden was benefiting from Teach's continued illicit activities, perhaps in exchange for protection or turning a blind eye. The lines between law and lawlessness blurred, painting a picture of a colonial administration entangled in a web of deceit. Trust became a dangerous commodity. The rumors, and Blackbeard's continued presence, did not go unnoticed. Governor Alexander Spotswood of Virginia, a staunch opponent of piracy, grew increasingly alarmed. He viewed Teach's retirement as a farce, a mockery of justice. Spotswood took matters into his own hands, bypassing North Carolina's allegedly compromised authorities. He secretly dispatched a formidable force to hunt down and eliminate the pirate once and for all. The trap was being set. The man entrusted with this perilous task was Lieutenant Robert Maynard of the Royal Navy. Maynard was an experienced officer, disciplined and resolute. His orders were clear: find Blackbeard, engage him, and bring him to justice. He departed from Virginia with 2 sloops, the Ranger and the Jane, and a contingent of armed men. It was a mission fraught with danger, facing a legendary pirate who had seemed untouchable. The final confrontation loomed. Maynard tracked Blackbeard to Ocracoke Inlet, North Carolina, where the pirate had been anchored. This shallow, treacherous waterway was Blackbeard's chosen sanctuary, a place where larger naval vessels struggled. But Maynard's smaller sloops were perfectly suited for the task. The morning of November 22, 1718, dawned with a chilling stillness, soon to be shattered by the roar of cannons and the clash of steel. The final act was about to begin. The numbers were deceptively skewed. Blackbeard commanded a much smaller crew that day, reportedly only about 20 men, on a relatively small sloop. Maynard, on the other hand, had a combined force of approximately 60 Royal Navy men spread across his 2 sloops. Despite the numerical disadvantage, Blackbeard's reputation, and the ferocity of his remaining crew, meant this would be no easy victory for Maynard. The stage was set for a bloody, desperate fight. As Maynard's sloops closed in, Blackbeard fired a deadly broadside, inflicting casualties. Maynard, in a cunning move, ordered most of his men below deck, making his sloop appear thinly manned. Blackbeard, seeing an easy target, ordered his crew to board. This was a trap. As the pirates swarmed onto Maynard's deck, the hidden Royal Navy men burst forth, engaging in brutal, close-quarters combat. The tide of battle turned instantly. At the heart of the maelstrom, Blackbeard himself fought with a terrifying fury. He was a force of nature, wielding multiple pistols and his cutlass, cutting down several of Maynard's men. He faced Lieutenant Maynard directly, their blades clashing in a desperate duel. This was no ordinary pirate, this was a man fighting for his life, his legend, and the very spirit of piracy against the might of the Royal Navy. A legend's final, desperate act. Despite his ferocious resistance, Blackbeard was ultimately overwhelmed. In the chaotic melee, Lieutenant Maynard managed to shoot Teach. Wounded, but still fighting, Blackbeard was then surrounded by Maynard's men. He was stabbed repeatedly, a staggering 20 times, and shot an additional 5. The man who had terrified the world, whose image alone commanded surrender, finally fell, succumbing to his wounds. The legend's end was as brutal as his life. To ensure there would be no doubt, and as a stark warning to all other pirates, Lieutenant Maynard performed a gruesome act. He ordered Blackbeard's head to be severed. This grim trophy was then displayed on the bowsprit of Maynard's sloop, a chilling testament to the pirate's demise. It was a brutal end for a brutal man, and a definitive statement from the Crown: piracy would not be tolerated. The era of unchecked pirate rule was drawing to a close. The Battle of Ocracoke Inlet, and Blackbeard's death, marked a significant turning point in the Golden Age of Piracy. It sent a clear message that no pirate, however fearsome, was beyond the reach of imperial justice. While piracy continued for some time, the systematic hunt by colonial governors and the Royal Navy intensified. The wild freedom that Blackbeard had embodied was slowly being choked by organized authority. The echo of the cannons reverberated across the seas. Blackbeard's death cemented his place in legend, but also allowed the myths to fully take root. The popular image of Blackbeard as a bloodthirsty, indiscriminate killer, a madman who reveled in cruelty, largely stems from sensationalized accounts written after his demise. The truth, as we've seen, is more nuanced. He was a ruthless opportunist, yes, but one who often favored strategic intimidation over unnecessary bloodshed. The monster was, in part, a creation of fear itself. And what of the fabled buried treasure? The popular image of pirates burying chests of gold on remote islands, awaiting future retrieval, is largely a fabrication of fiction. Blackbeard, like most real-life pirates, was a pragmatist. Plunder was typically divided quickly and spent, not hoarded. The notion of his vast, hidden riches fueled centuries of treasure hunts, yet historical records offer scant evidence of any substantial buried wealth. The true treasure was the fleeting moment of power. The enduring truth of Blackbeard lies in his mastery of psychological warfare. His dark beard, the lit fuses, his very name, these were not random embellishments. They were deliberate tools, honed to terrorize his opponents into submission. His fear-inducing persona was his primary weapon, often more effective than cannons or cutlasses. He understood that the human mind, when gripped by fear, could be conquered before any physical engagement. A true master of terror. Beneath the facade of the wild, monstrous pirate was a calculating, strategic mind. Teach was an astute navigator, a capable naval commander, and a shrewd negotiator. His actions, from the conversion of the Queen Anne's Revenge to the Charleston blockade, reveal a man who planned, adapted, and executed with chilling precision. He wasn't just a brute, he was an intellect who chose a life outside the law, and excelled at it. A dark genius of the high seas. Blackbeard's impact on the history of piracy is undeniable. He became the archetype of the fearsome pirate, influencing countless stories, films, and imaginations for centuries. His brief, but impactful, reign instilled a deep and pervasive fear that resonated across the Atlantic. He pushed the boundaries of piracy, challenging colonial powers and proving how vulnerable they truly were to a determined, intelligent, and utterly terrifying adversary. His shadow still stretches across the waves. So, who was Edward Teach? He was a privateer who turned pirate, a skilled sailor, a master of intimidation. He was a man who embraced lawlessness not just for riches, but for power, and perhaps, for an extreme form of freedom. His life was short, brutal, and ended in a hail of gunfire and steel. He was not merely a character from a children's story, but a complex historical figure whose real actions were often more chilling than any fiction. A human beneath the legend. The dark truth about Blackbeard is not just about the violence he inflicted, but the psychological terror he wielded. It's about a man who understood the power of a crafted image, and how to use it to dominate. It's about a period when empires were vulnerable, and individuals, however notorious, could challenge their might. The true story of Blackbeard isn't just a tale of adventure, but a stark reminder of human ambition, fear, and the enduring power of a carefully constructed myth. His legend sails on. We have journeyed through the turbulent waters of the early 18th century, separating the coarse threads of myth from the intricate weave of historical fact. We've seen Edward Teach, a sailor from Bristol, transform into Blackbeard, a figure whose very silhouette instilled dread. His reign was a brutal, strategic dance between intimidation and calculated force, a testament to his understanding of power dynamics on the high seas. But how did he truly become the pirate who terrified the world? The transition from legitimate privateer to infamous pirate was a common trajectory for many post-war sailors. Teach was no exception. The skills he acquired during the War of Spanish Succession, naval tactics, leadership, and a ruthless pragmatism were perfectly transferable to a life of plunder. This wasn't a sudden, irrational leap, it was a pragmatic choice for a man whose expertise was now redundant in peacetime. A calculated career change, in defiance of empire. Benjamin Hornigold, Teach's mentor, played a crucial role in shaping the future Blackbeard. Hornigold provided the initial opportunity, a command, and the environment for Teach to flourish. It was under his wing that Teach truly began to understand the mechanics of fleet command, the art of raid, and the psychological impact of a unified pirate force. Hornigold's eventual retirement cleared the path, unleashing Teach's independent ambition onto the high seas. A master taught his apprentice too well. The creation of the Blackbeard persona was a deliberate act of theatricality. The dark, flowing beard, the pistols tucked into his belt, the smoldering fuses beneath his hat, each element was designed for maximum psychological impact. This wasn't a fashion statement, it was a uniform of terror, a visual brand. He understood that a reputation for mercilessness could be built without constant, overt cruelty. The symbol itself was the weapon. A masterpiece of menacing marketing. The Queen Anne's Revenge, once the French slave ship La Concorde, became the embodiment of Blackbeard's power. Its transformation into a heavily armed warship, boasting 40 cannons, signaled his intent to dominate. It was more than a vessel, it was a mobile fortress, a statement of defiance against any who would challenge him. This wasn't a mere captured ship, it was a symbol, meticulously crafted to amplify his dread. The vessel became as legendary as its captain. Life aboard the Queen Anne's Revenge, while harsh, was structured by a unique code. Plunder was distributed according to shares, discipline was maintained, and even injuries were compensated. This wasn't a chaotic free-for-all, it was a functioning, if brutal, society. These rules fostered loyalty among his diverse crew, a band of privateers, runaway slaves, and dispossessed sailors. It was a dark, yet compelling alternative to the rigid class structures of the official world. The blockade of Charlestown was a strategic masterpiece, demonstrating Blackbeard's intelligence beyond mere brute force. To hold a major colonial port hostage, not for gold, but for medicine, was an act of audacious calculation. It showcased his ability to exploit vulnerabilities, to use psychological pressure, and to secure vital resources for his crew. This wasn't the act of a madman, but a brilliant, if utterly lawless, commander. A high-stakes game of chess. Blackbeard's retirement under Governor Charles Eden raises uncomfortable questions about complicity. The allegations of corruption, of Eden turning a blind eye to continued illicit activities, suggest a system far from justice. This wasn't just about Blackbeard's actions, it was about the moral decay within colonial governance itself. It revealed that even those sworn to uphold the law could be swayed by the lure of pirate spoils. A corrupt bargain, shrouded in whispers. Governor Alexander Spotswood of Virginia, unlike Eden, was resolute. His decision to bypass North Carolina authorities and dispatch Lieutenant Maynard was a bold and necessary move. It demonstrated the gravity of the pirate threat and the perceived failure of local governance. Spotswood understood that Blackbeard's continued existence, even in retirement, undermined colonial stability and British authority. The stage was set for a decisive, bloody end. Justice would be found, one way or another. The final battle at Ocracoke Inlet was not just a skirmish, it was the inevitable clash between two opposing forces, the wild, anarchic freedom of piracy and the organized, relentless pursuit of imperial law. Blackbeard, reduced to a small crew, faced the full weight of the Royal Navy's determination. The treacherous waters of the inlet, his former sanctuary, became his final battleground. The currents of history were closing in. No escape. Lieutenant Maynard's strategy in the battle was a testament to his tactical acumen. His feigned retreat and hidden men were a calculated risk, but one that paid off spectacularly. He understood that to defeat a legend like Blackbeard, one could not rely solely on force. Deception, cunning, and a willingness to engage in desperate close-quarters combat were required. Maynard didn't just fight Blackbeard, he outsmarted him, a crucial element in defeating such a formidable foe. A masterstroke of naval subterfuge. Even in his final moments, Blackbeard exemplified the ferocity that defined his legend. Wielding multiple weapons, engaging Maynard directly, he fought with a desperate, almost primal, intensity. It wasn't the refined combat of a naval officer, but the savage, unyielding struggle of a cornered beast. This was the raw, terrifying power that had spread fear across the oceans. His final stand was a brutal confirmation of his legendary prowess in combat. A force of nature, untamed until the very end. The sheer number of wounds Blackbeard sustained, 5 gunshots, 20 stab wounds, speaks volumes about his resilience and the determination of Maynard's men. It took an overwhelming effort to bring down the pirate who terrified the world. His death was a testament to the price of his infamy, the lengths to which authorities would go to eliminate such a symbol of defiance. It was a grim, bloody end to a life lived on the very edge of human experience. The legend, however, had just begun. The display of Blackbeard's severed head on Maynard's bowsprit was more than a trophy, it was a potent, chilling message. It was a declaration to every aspiring pirate, every colonial governor, and every fearful merchant that the age of unchallenged piracy was over. This grotesque act was designed to strike fear not into the hearts of sailors, but into the very spirit of lawlessness. A visceral warning, etched into the memories of all who saw it. The terror had found a new face. Blackbeard's demise signaled a significant shift. While individual acts of piracy continued, the era of large pirate fleets openly challenging colonial powers was effectively over. The increased resolve of the Royal Navy and colonial governors like Spotswood, combined with the loss of charismatic leaders like Blackbeard, slowly but surely brought the Golden Age of Piracy to a close. The wild, untamed frontier of the seas was shrinking, swallowed by the expanding reach of empire. The black flag began to fall. Yet, even in death, Blackbeard's legend proved immortal. His story, embellished and sensationalized, transcended history, becoming the very embodiment of the pirate myth. The burning fuses, the fearsome beard, the untamed spirit, these elements continue to captivate. He became more than a man, he became a symbol of rebellion, adventure, and the dark allure of freedom on the open sea. A ghost ship sailing forever through our collective imagination. The Pirate King lives on. By peeling back the layers of myth, we uncover a Blackbeard far more complex and perhaps even more terrifying than the caricature. Not a madman, but a brilliant strategist. Not a mindless killer, but a master of psychological warfare. His story is a powerful reminder that history's most compelling figures are rarely one-dimensional. The true dark truth about Blackbeard is the chilling reality of a calculated terror, meticulously constructed and ruthlessly executed. The Pirate King, revealed. Blackbeard left no buried treasure, but his legacy is far more profound, a blueprint for terror. He showed that fear, meticulously cultivated and expertly wielded, could be a more devastating weapon than any cannonball. His story continues to challenge our perceptions of heroes and villains, freedom and lawlessness. He remains the pirate who terrified the world, not just through his actions, but through the enduring power of the legend he's so carefully crafted. His dark shadow still looms, a testament to true fear.